Hello, world history students. This is Mrs. Policky, and these are your notes for Chapter 13, Section 1, and Chapter 13, Section 2. The other day, on Monday, you received a packet before you left class, and that packet will be needed to complete these notes. So please find that, and once you have, you can follow along with the lecture here, and you can jot down what information that you need. So, to begin with, we're going to talk a little bit about a guy named Charlemagne, who was a pretty righteous dude, nonetheless, and really kind of set the model for the way rulers were going to act in the Middle Ages. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the three important Merovingian leaders and some of their characteristics. Sometimes this group of people are sometimes known as the Carolingians, but it just depends on the textbook that you look at as far as how they're going to describe them. The three rulers here are a guy named Clovis, who you see down here in this photograph. Clovis was a brutal, clever kind of ruler. He was king of the Franks, and he was one of the first of this line to make a conversion to Christianity. And in a way, we call him a Catholic convert. His son was a guy named Charles Martel, and we've heard about Charles Martel a while back when we were talking about the Middle East, and the fact that the Muslims at one point in time had tried to conquer Europe and were fought back at a place called the Battle of Tours, which would be like today in present-day France. Charles Martel would be the man. Okay, and then he had a son. His name was Pepin the Short. Okay, Pepin the Short was, yes, a short man. He was also anointed by the Pope. And in a way, that's kind of a way to say that this family has a blessing from God as far as how they're going to rule over their people. Okay, as a result of this, we start hearing about things called papal states. Papal states are basically regions of land, for the most part, that are ruled by the Pope. You're going to find that what would be Italy years later had many, many papal states. Charlemagne in number 3. Who was Charlemagne? Well, Charlemagne was aka Charles the Great. He was the son of Pepin the Short, and he became one of the greatest monarchs in Europe. Charlemagne helped shape a new European society by encouraging learning, by building schools, expanding Christianity, and creating a single law code or a code of law for the entire empire. It doesn't necessarily mean that he was making up laws, but what he was doing is he was taking all the laws of the people that he had in his empire and putting them into some kind of a group. After Charlemagne conquered a people, he would basically be ordered to convert those people to Christianity. And this brought about the promotion of religious education as a result of that. In the map, you can kind of get an idea as far as the amount of land. If we think about this map pretty much being a good portion of what would be present-day France, a little bit of Germany. If you see the Rhine River here, this would be what would become Germany, or kind of the dividing line of Germany. So you would have countries like the Netherlands, Belgium, present-day Paris or France, and also Germany that would be part of this. All right, moving along. What happened after Charlemagne's death? Well, his son took over. His son was Louis the Pious. And unfortunately, Louis was not a very good ruler. And as a result, the kingdom kind of fell apart. And there would be wars and such that would come about. All right. Speaking of wars, we've got to talk about some of the invaders that were going to show up. And we are now starting Chapter 13, Section 2, the new invaders. So, Europeans feared the Vikings, those crazy Vikings with kind of strange looking hats like you see down here in the picture. Because the Vikings traveled quickly, they attacked their targets with little warning, and they captured or, if anything, killed anyone who tried to stop them. Vikings were driven to raid other countries because of their need for food and for supplies that Scandinavia could not provide. And if you're not sure where Scandinavia is, that would be countries like present-day Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Not to mention maybe a little further south, Denmark, which is basically just north of Germany. There are four characteristics of the Vikings. The first one is that they did travel in long, sturdy boats, as you can see down here in this model. Oarsmen would propel the boats. There would be a sail, but for the most part, not necessarily a boat that would provide for a lot of cargo or a lot of protection for maybe a long voyage across the Atlantic. The Vikings also sought riches and they fought hard. They explored and settled along the Atlantic and the Mediterranean coast, so they weren't necessarily kind of up in the cold latitudes. And finally, they worshiped many gods and they composed poetry. Many people today might label our Vikings as being barbaric for some of the things that they have done. Viking sailors had an advantage on other sailors because their ships could carry large crews, they could withstand heavy waves. The Vikings had excellent navigational skills, all of which come in handy if you're trying to conquer some people. In the years to come, here we go, the Vikings settled in Iceland. They also settled in Greenland, which is not necessarily green, Canada, North America, and northern France. And eventually, we're going to talk a little bit about a group of people known as Normans here, probably in chapter 14. And for the most part, the Normans, they're descendants of the Vikings. So anyway, number 6. The Vikings were able to acquire land in France because they made a deal with the King of France that if the raids would stop, the king would grant them land. And that's kind of where the Normans come about, is how they kind of settled down and kind of got with the system. All right, that is where we're going to stop today. Make sure that you complete your notes. We will be talking a little bit about these in class, but we will probably be doing a little review activity when I see you next. Have a great weekend. Bye.